This is The Sports Life.
Oh, they're going to let it run out. Listen to the crowd here in the background. Nebraska with the crown. Here, they grab the crown, and if the crown fits, wear it, my boys. There's the horn. There's the game. Husker Hoops, college basketball's royalty, wins the crown over UCF. Final score, Huskers 77, UCF 66.
And welcome into the Sports Life. We'll team in here along with Dalton Shetler. Kent Pavelka, the voice of the Huskers basketball team, talks about Nebraska winning the Crown tournament. And it's hard to imagine how many postseason tournaments we have now, but it's good to win one, right?
Absolutely. Well, and by the way, Nebraska is the only school that could say out there they've won the NIT and the Crown.
There you go. There you go. Well, this show is going to be an interesting one. We have a show that's designed to kind of look at some topics and think about some things. And when I go down that road, you got to believe that Deb Schneider, who's a sports law attorney and a professor at Michigan State and Wayne State Universities, is part of all that, as we're going to dissect the latest piece of legal action as we try to sort out what is college sports.
And try to figure out who's on first and what's on second with everything happening in college athletics. That'll be interesting. But also, one of our favorite stories we've told in this program's existence is the resurrection of Michigan State Gymnastics in the program, and the guy who's been leading it, Mike Rowe. We told the story again not that long ago. Well, MSU's heading to the national championships for the first time in 37 years, led by that guy, Mike Rowe, and he's going to be joining us later to talk about the special ride it's been for the green and white.
Okay, let's hop into the sounds of the week.
Well, and why don't we start with the crown? College basketball's royalty, Husker Hoops, as Kent Pavelka called them. Fred Hoiberg, the head coach, on stage after the game, had some words to share with the spectators in attendance.
I feel like I have residency in Vegas now as long as we've been here, but it's I just want to say how much I have absolutely cherished this time with this team these last 3 weeks. I'm so happy that we made the decision to play in this event. It was a first-class run event, and our guys showed up, and I couldn't be more proud of how they finished after a tough end of the regular season. And I want to give a special shout-out to Husker Nation for showing up in this tournament. Thank you, guys.
Fred Hoiberg, the head basketball coach at Nebraska. And one of the neat things for them winning this thing, how do you not root for Fred Hoiberg and all of his guys, especially with all the hard luck they had coming down the stretch?
And they find a way to rally together and win a postseason tournament. Pretty cool stuff for Nebraska.
And by the way, Dalton, is it true Nebraska got $300,000 for their NIL fund for winning this thing?
That's right. That's one of the new features that the Crown presents. And doesn't it just seem super appropriate for everything going on in college athletics? There's an NIL purse now?
It's in Vegas. Come on.
Oh, gotta love it. Somebody else who's seeing the dollars roll in now is Northwestern's head coach Chris Collins, because he signed a contract extension to stay in Evanston, Illinois. The contract extension will run through 2030. Now, again, for context, Chris Collins, the only Northwestern head coach to ever take the Wildcats to the NCAA tournament, and he's 2 to 3 seasons from becoming the winningest all-time head coach for Northwestern men's basketball. But he talked about on the Big Ten Network why he decided to stick around at Northwestern.
Well, I think a number of things. First, where my heart was lying. My family and I came back to Evanston 12 years ago, after growing up in this area with a dream of building a program and being competitive and going to NCAA tournaments, and to watch my kids kind of be able to get through schooling here. My son's gone to Northwestern. I mean, this is where my heart is. We're happy here. I love the direction of where we're going. Mark Jackson has come in and brought a fresh, new, exciting kind of leadership style that I'm looking forward to being a part of. And really for me, it's crazy. I've been coaching now almost 30 years, and I still feel like I'm young, but as you get into kind of the last stages of your career, it's, where does your heart lie? What makes you happy? Where do you want to be? And all those things were Northwestern, and excited to keep this thing going. And crazy landscape of college sports, as we know, but I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how we can, continue to be Northwestern, but also keep building towards being in the upper echelon of the Big Ten in basketball.
Chris Collins extends his stay at Northwestern as the head basketball coach there. I don't know about you, Dalton, but it just seems like the perfect fit. Coach Collins in Northwestern, it just seems like it was meant to be.
Well, and he's taken that program to heights that I don't know if some people believed were achievable at Northwestern. Chris Collins has done an amazing job there, and it does. You play word association, you say Northwestern basketball, the first name besides Boo Booey, maybe, to my mind, is Chris Collins. So it's a really cool thing to see them staying married. The last sound of the week that we'll play, of course, the Final Four on the women's side finished up in Tampa this previous week, and UCLA ran into what happened to be a buzzsaw. The UConn Huskies, they drop in the semifinals, but it was the first ever time they had been to the Final Four on the women's side, and UCLA head coach Corey Close talked a little bit about what this group meant, and by the way, some of these key players, like the Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten, Lauren Betts, will be back next season. Here's Close's perspective on the Bruins.
I have never had a roster this star-studded, and it's uncommon to have this many stars be willing to give up individual things for a more powerful collective thing. It's the hardest working team that I've ever been a part of, top to bottom. I have to kick them out all the time of the gym. They want more. They're incredibly hardworking, and I have to give that credit to Kiki Rice. She has set a cultural standard of work that is contagious and pervasive. She deserves so much credit in that.
Corey Close, the head basketball coach of the women at UCLA. 14 years she's been there. First time to the Final Four, as Dalton said. We should also note, Dalton, that she is the Naismith Women's Coach of the Year.
She might know a thing or two about coaching and what she's talking about.
Well, when we come back with more of the sports life, we're going to delve into the latest legal activity that could affect the world of college sports in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender.
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Every kid deserves a chance to feel safe, to have their own bed, to be loved and cared for. That's why I love my foster parents. They make me feel like part of the family.
Raise hope and foster dreams for one of 13,000 Michigan children in foster care. Visit michigan.gov/hope-for-a-home or call 855-MICH-KIDS. That's 855-MICH-KIDS. Sponsored by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of uncertainty lurking under your hood. You know the feeling. I know I do. That sudden sinking sensation when you see a check engine light or your car unexpectedly breaks down and you're faced with sky-high repair bills. It's time to shield against unexpected repairs with CarShield. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Don't let the fear of a breakdown keep you up at night. Trust the Shield, CarShield, and say goodbye to terrifying repair bills and hello to peace of mind. Your plan also comes with 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, rental car options, and so much more. Don't wait till it's too late. Call CarShield now before a breakdown. Protect your wallet. Protect your car with CarShield. Get our best protection ever. Call now. You'll thank me later. 800-965-1292. 800-965-1292. That's 800-965-1292.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Roxanne Watson is on a mission.
Hello, how are you doing today?
She wants more people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors.
Are you an organ donor?
Yes, I am.
Yay.
My goal is to sign up the most people in the United States.
What drives her? Roxanne's own life was saved through the gift of a heart transplant, made possible by an organ donor.
I decided that day that I was going to devote myself to the cause of organ donation and signing people up and honoring my donor by doing that.
Now she's back to health, and she's a powerful force helping to save lives every day through her work. Imagine what you can make possible by leaving behind the gift of life.
8 people can be helped with the major organs, and up to 50 people can be helped with a little bit of everything. And when you think about it that way, that you could help that many people, it's amazing. It really is.
Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, to say college basketball, maybe even college athletics, is sort of a ship without a rudder could be somewhat of an understatement. But today we're going to focus in on college basketball just for a second. Jay Bilas, ESPN college basketball analyst and Emmy-nominated commentator, made an appearance on the SiriusXM show called Basketball and Beyond with Coach K. Of course, that's Mike Krzyzewski. And Jay Bilas had this solution to all the problems.
The NCAA used to die on the hill of amateurism in court. Now they're dying on the employment hill. They can't be employees. We can't have them as employees. Don't understand that because students are employees at every school in the country in different capacities, non-athlete students. But if they would just sign the players to contracts, say, hey, we're willing to offer you a 3-year deal with an option for a 4th. If you get arrested, we get to terminate. It's mandatory class attendance. You have to do this, this, and this. And there's going to be a buyout in there. We negotiate the amount of the buyout. So if I wanted to leave, go somewhere else, I'd have to pay the buyout, or my new school would have to pay the buyout. It's pretty simple.
So there's an opinion from Jay Bilas on how we can fix college basketball. Well, Jay has an opinion, and so does a U.S. District Judge by the name of Claudia Wilkin. She had some opinions this week, which could really change the landscape of college sports. So, with that being said, we now welcome to the show Deb Schneider, a sports law attorney and professor at Michigan State and Wayne State Universities. And Deb, welcome into the show. So, first off, let's talk about what Jay Bilas said. Is that a workable solution to all this craziness that's going on?
Well, thank you, Dalton and Will, for having me again. I always enjoy talking to you about this. The idea of labor law, we've got to understand that labor law is different than antitrust. All of the hearings and everything that we've been talking about is based on antitrust law. He's talking about making the athletes employees. That sounds great in theory because, as we've talked in the past, most students who work for a university are employees and they're covered by all the insurances and everything. The problem with athletics is that athletes are getting hurt every day. So now we have a workers' comp problem. And if every athlete was an employee and every athlete who threw out their shoulder or hurt their knee or twisted their ankle could file a workers' comp claim, I think we would destroy athletics at universities.
Interesting. By the way, I did twist my ankle when I worked in the cafeteria once, just so you know.
It's just fewer. The athletes get hurt every day, whereas most employees don't. Very few.
Well, let's
except
talk.
For you, Will.
Except for me. So let's talk a little bit about what happened in California with this U.S. District Judge, Claudia Wilkin. Headlines are saying all over the place this could change the landscape of what is college athletics. So is that true? And can you explain to Dalton and I and everybody listening what exactly happened out there?
I will do my best. So we have 3 cases that are antitrust cases against the NCAA, the Power 5 conferences. There was a settlement in these 3 cases that the NCAA and the conferences met with the class. This is a class action lawsuit. And Claudia Wilkin, Judge Wilkin, is looking to approve that settlement. And the basis of the settlement is there's $2.8 billion in back, we're calling it pay, but I'd put that in quotes because, again, this is not labor law. This is pay for NIL that would be given to athletes dating back to any athlete participating in collegiate athletics to 2016. And it's based on lost NIL revenue, and that will be paid over 10 years. So that's the first piece of this. The second piece was, as part of this settlement, they've agreed to revenue sharing, which would be allowing the athletes to be paid directly by the schools. And that's the big thing there, directly by the schools. In the past, we've had collectives or the athletes could cut their own deals, but this would be a direct payment by the school, an absolute pay for play. The third piece of this settlement would be eliminating scholarship numbers in favor of roster limits. And if you want to break down each of these three parts of the settlement, so we're only looking at athletes who've paid since 2016. There's a whole group of athletes who've played since then, and there's a group of athletes who will be playing in the next 10 years. This is really a 10-year settlement. So part of the problem on this is, how do we tie future athletes to this settlement that they have no part of? So that's part of what Judge Wilkin is looking at. We also have the fact that there's a $20.5 million cap in year one for this revenue sharing, which will increase year over year. This is sidebar, this amounts to about a 50-50 revenue share with the schools, which is on par with the pros. They've also been trying to set up a clearinghouse, which will be operated by Deloitte, which will judge NIL deals that are greater than $600 and make sure that they are getting fair market value. The real issue here is that in the past, since the NCAA has grown up and died on the hill of amateurism, and they've had a zero cap. All of these cases stem from antitrust law, saying that that is a violation of antitrust law. And all you're doing is moving the cap from 0 to 20.5 million. It's still an antitrust violation. It's just a price cap. The third piece of this are the roster limits, and that's where a lot of objections are coming in. The students who are currently on teams don't want to be cut because of these roster limits. And this is where Judge Wilkin is putting a few brakes on, and she's talking about perhaps grandfathering in these students, phasing in the roster limits, something so that students who are on teams now will not get cut. So the result of all of this in this hearing is that Judge Wilkin has said, give me briefs on these few issues. They've got 1 week to do that. We're still on track to get the settlement. She also said in a sidebar that she does think that the settlement is a good settlement. But of course, she said, don't quote me on that. So everybody's quoting her on that. But you've got to look at the NCAA is getting a lot out of this. They're eliminating the risk of past damages. They've got some time they're creating this whole new system. And it might give them time to bring something like this to Congress to get actual federal legislation. The schools have prepared in a lot of ways. They've been signing deals. They're figuring out their roster limits. The coaches are working within what they perceive to be the new system. The other issue that's outside of all of this, which Judge Wilkin doesn't seem to be too concerned about, but which has been a big concern, and I know we've talked about it in the past, has been the idea of Title IX. And that's largely ignored by the settlement, I'd say. And keep in mind that while it is ignored, the schools are going to have to figure out how to deal with that on a revenue share basis. There will still be a private right of action, regardless of who's going to be enforcing it. There'll still be a private right of action. So we anticipate that however a school decides to revenue share, there will be litigation. I'm not sure that answers the whole question, but I think the bottom line answer is the athletes are in charge.
Well, and it seems, Deb, like it's just a buffet of topics and issues that are all being tackled all at once. I mean, the plate feels kind of full. And I want to ask you a two-pronged question, two layers to it about revenue share specifically. And again, I'm fairly ignorant in this area, so I take all the information I can get. But you said that you're still violating antitrust if you move the cap from 0, which it currently is, to $20.5 million, which is the proposal. Why does that violate antitrust law? I think that's important for everybody to understand. But also, what do the deals look like between universities and student athletes if you're talking about direct pay for play, direct revenue sharing? Are there contracts? What does that look like?
Okay, let's tackle the first one. The antitrust laws protect against price fixing. And all this is price fixing. It just raises the cap. You can't price fix at 0. And that was the basis upon which all these lawsuits, the House lawsuit was initially brought, was that you have taken away my ability to profit off my name, image, likeness. And now all you're saying is we're capping your ability from 0 to 20.5 million. So you're just moving the bar up, but you still are price fixing. The second piece of this is, what do the deals look like for the athletes in the schools? The schools are working with their legal departments and with their collectives and creating deals with the athletes. We expect, and what we've seen so far with the deals that are going to be men's football, men's basketball, the revenue producers for schools are going to be getting the bigger of the deals, and it will just trickle down.
Well, Deb, let me ask you this. So the pros have caps. So what's the difference between a Major League Baseball cap and a cap in college sports?
The pros have caps because they're operating under the labor law idea. So they have a union, they have collective bargaining, and they've agreed to those caps. The NCAA is not operating under labor law, which goes back to that initial question that we were talking about, the difference between labor law and antitrust law. So antitrust law says that you cannot have a contract, combination, or conspiracy that restrains trade in interstate commerce or commerce among the states and foreign nations. Labor law is based on the idea of a union where you have, by definition, that is a contract, combination, or conspiracy which is designed to restrain trade. So if you have a labor law, and antitrust does exempt labor organizations. So if you are a labor organization, you can collectively bargain and agree to things that might otherwise be illegal under antitrust law. So you have to choose one or the other.
That can make it interesting. So, Deb, can you hang with us? Because we have a couple more questions for you.
Absolutely.
Well, we'll return with more of our chat with Deb Schneider, sports law attorney and professor, Michigan State and Wayne State Universities, as we're trying to sort out what's going on as legally we attempt to move forward in the wide world of college athletics in a positive way. Back with more in just a moment.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Here's a real-life story that affects 50% of all of us out there. It's called divorce. If you've gotten divorced and now you're struggling to pay your bills and your credit card debts are completely out of control, you need to call this special debt relief hotline right now. We help people with all kinds of money problems caused by different life challenges, a divorce, a job loss, even heavy medical bills. All these life events can sometimes financially stress you out and cause you to get out of control. We help people get their lives back by showing them ways to consolidate and reduce their debt, in some cases for a fraction of what they owe. If your credit card balances are more than $10,000, call us and learn how to reduce your credit card bills and monthly payments now. Here's our number.
Paid for by Debt.com. Call now, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584. That's 800-810-1584.
That ought to do it. Totally energy efficient.
Oh no, not again. This time, we're getting help.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the battle of energy efficiency improvements. In this corner, Mr. I can save money and do it on my own. And in this corner, Miss Let's Get It Done Right with some help. Fight!
Or you could just go to avoidenergydrama.com. From sealing your home to helpful loan options, you'll find all the tips and tools you need to stop wasting energy and stay comfortable. Avoidenergydrama.com. Brought to you by Michigan Saves.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Unlike other health concerns, mental illness is not always easy to see. Depression won't show up on an eye chart, and you can't measure it on your bathroom scale. Sorting out a mental health concern is not something to attempt on your own. You won't find a bipolar disorder by looking at a thermometer. Like many other health conditions, help for mental illness takes professional diagnosis and treatment. Anxiety won't just go away under a stick-on bandage. So the sooner you seek treatment, the better. If you or a loved one has a mental health concern, don't go it alone. Find out what to do. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, call 1-800-662-HELP. Learn more at samhsa.gov/support. That's samhsa.gov/support.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shetler. And we're being rejoined here by Deb Schneider, sports law attorney and professor, Michigan State and Wayne State Universities. And Deb, in your last segment, you explained why a cap for the college student athletes is a little different than the caps in the pros. And if we're talking about labor law against antitrust, my question is this: how hard would it be to unionize every college athlete in America so you could have a cap and bring some order to this?
What a great question, Will. How difficult would it be to unionize? Each school has their unions. Every university has their unions. We've seen attempts at unionization for college athletes. We saw it with Northwestern back in 2015. We saw it very recently with Dartmouth and with the basketball team, where now they've put on hold that union. So the idea is that every university would have to unionize separately, or the question with labor law is always, what is the collective bargaining? What is the proper bargaining unit? Would that be all football players throughout the country? Would that be basketball players? Would that be based on school? However that would run. We also have a difference between public and private universities. So a public university, those athletes might be deemed government employees, as opposed to a private university, which is what we saw with Dartmouth and also with Northwestern, where they could potentially unionize and use the National Labor Relations Board and those laws. So you have two different types of labor law that are coming into play here, in addition to how do you determine what the proper bargaining unit is, where the union's going to run. Is it school by school? So Dartmouth is going to be different than Vanderbilt, and University of Michigan is going to be different than Stanford University, and everybody's different? Or do you try to level a playing field, pun intended there? So there's a lot of question from a labor perspective as to who's in the union, what the union is for, and how do you deal with public versus private?
Deb, as we've said, there's so much to tackle here, and I'm sorry to circle back, but I have a curiosity, and I really want to get clarification on this. When we talk about the revenue share model, and we talk about players, the university is able to give $20.5 million, and you had mentioned that it violates the antitrust because it then caps. Does that then suggest, and I'm asking this just so that I understand completely, does that suggest that student athletes, when they sign these deals with universities and institutions to go play there now, and they get money from the university and institution, that they're no longer looking for NIL deals on their own on the outside? Is that why it's capped? Or can they still search for potential individual endorsements on their own outside of the deal just with the institution?
Dalton, that's going to depend on the contract. And I have not seen a contract from one of the universities. If it is an exclusive contract, then they will not be able to go out and get their own deal. My guess is that the universities will allow them to negotiate their own deals, because part of this is probably going to be related to social media. We know that a lot of name, image, likeness, and a lot of the money in name, image, likeness is based on each athlete's followers and the number of followers. That's why we see some athletes who aren't necessarily the best athletes, or athletes in different sports, actually being higher on the NIL rankings in terms of revenue than athletes who might otherwise be better, or might better in terms of they might have a better chance of going pro or any of that. So the answer is going to depend on what the contract looks like. And unfortunately, I haven't seen one of those yet.
So, Deb, I'm going to go back now to the roster as opposed to scholarship limits. So if there is a roster limit of 105, and that is not how many scholarships a school can give for football right now, does that mean they could give 105 scholarships?
The roster limits are based on the different schools or the different sports. So each sport is going to have a different roster limit, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what the scholarship limits were. This has all been renegotiated in this settlement. The issue is going to be, I think, on that front, we have a transfer portal, and the issue is going to be how that transfer portal relates to these roster limits. Because if you have roster limits, who are you going to put on your team? You're going to put the team together that's going to win this year. Because next year, you're not necessarily going to be guaranteed to keep these students, which is why the labor idea and the idea of having a contract and holding somebody there for a few years works from a continuity standpoint. But the roster limits still have to be played into with transfer portal, and the fact that at some point, if you're looking to put together that winning team, you're not looking to build your team. You're not looking for the 17 or 18-year-old kid. So this also fundamentally changes where kids will be playing and when they'll be playing in the so-called big leagues.
Deb, another curiosity I have is, we've seen since some of the dust has semi-settled from what's happened this week with Judge Wilkin and everything. Some congressmen have started to put out their own proposals in bills, and as everybody's trying to digest what exactly is going on, how much should we be paying attention to some of these? Do some of these ideas that are being floated out there actually have legs that we can maybe see as a reality? What's your take on the future with those proposals?
There have been proposals since probably 2019 in Congress regarding the idea of NIL. And what happened was our federal Congress did not act on these. And there are bills, there are bipartisan bills, there are Republican bills, there are Democratic bills, there are bills that are for the athletes, there are bills that are for the NCAA, and pretty much everything in between. The states got ahead of them, and the lawsuits and the case law got ahead of them, and everybody's been on their, on their heels since, trying to come up with what is the best way to regulate NIL. Personally, I think federal regulation is the only way to have some kind of level playing field. Remember, the NCAA is a private voluntary organization. Schools do not have to be part of the NCAA. So it's losing some of its luster through this whole NIL thing for the last few years. But I do think some of those bills, ultimately, if Congress can agree on them, that's the best way to regulate NIL throughout the country.
The postseason football basically has been its own little creature, kind of operating outside the NCAA. And now you have this growth of the postseason with college football playoffs, kind of big business there. So who gets all that money? Where does that go?
Well, right now they're looking at Office of Football, where football from these Power 5 conferences will be basically taken out of, it already is, but really not part of the NCAA. And that's where that will probably go. And they will have their own regulations. So I understand it. They're looking for a CEO. They've already formed an LLC for this organization, and they're looking to take over the whole idea of football.
Well, Deb,
which then leaves the NCAA with basketball.
So at the end of the day, as we talk about all this, no matter what Claudia Wilkins, the U.S. District Judge, rules or doesn't rule on, or whatever proposals we see, is it just fair to say that at the end of the day, without federal intervention, we're sort of just floundering a little bit here?
I think we are. I think the athletes actually have so much power here, because in the past, the NCAA has ruled with an iron fist. Once the antitrust cracks and all these cracks started emerging in the NCAA walls, we've seen the athletes become more and more proactive with their litigation, with their attempts to unionize, with saying, hey, we should get a piece of this very, very large pie. So we have athletes who are looking for a piece of the pie. We have the fact that athletes, as of right now, are really not governed by any contract. We have the NCAA has opened up a transfer portal, so an athlete can go wherever the money is best. Pros, professional athletes are signed to contracts, so they have a certain number of years. There's an element of continuity. In this, we have the athletes having pretty much all the power, and if they don't get what they want, we're going to sue. And in a lot of cases these days, they've been successful with that. It takes a few years, but they have been successful in that way. So there's, I think it's something that we're going to see a big mess in, is, I guess, the bottom line on this one.
Well, Deb, I always appreciate you joining us. And the one feeling I am getting, even though it's still thoughts and rulings are all over the place, it does look like people are trying to get to the finish line on this, because they know if we don't get there, this whole thing can implode.
Absolutely. It's imploding now.
Well,
we
Deb,
saw St. Francis go from a D1 to D3.
Well, Deb, it's always good chatting with you. I always feel a little smarter after we talk to you. So I'm sure we'll do this again soon.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been delightful.
So there you go. Some of the thoughts of Deb Schneider, sports law attorney and professor at Michigan State and Wayne State Universities. And Dalton, as we go through all of this, I think everybody will agree on one thing, maybe two. One is something has to happen. We can't keep doing what we're doing. And maybe the second thing is, if we don't do something, this thing is really in real trouble.
I know I at least agree with it.
There you go. That's two of us. Probably Deb Schneider, too. When we come back with more of the Sports Life, one of the great stories in college sports this year, and it's been a great story for the last several years. It's all coming up right after this.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender.
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
So I graduated last year and got a job. Sweet! But it got boring. I didn't really have a purpose. Then I started volunteering with Community Action. It's a statewide network with 29 agencies across Michigan. Community Action helps people with food, housing, utilities, childcare, senior services, you name it. I found my purpose, helping people, changing lives. Won't you join me? Call 1-855-MI-ACTION or go to michigancommunityaction.org. Sponsored by Michigan Community Action and Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
This is a potter's field. When people can't pay for their funerals, they are buried here. It is a lonely, desolate place, littered with unmarked headstones. No one visits. No one leaves flowers. But it doesn't have to be that way. For as low as $1 a day, you can ensure your family will have the money to pay your funeral expenses. We offer burial insurance plans that pay up to $30,000. Considering the average funeral costs more than $10,000, that's peace of mind for your family. There are no medical exams, your rates won't increase, and your policy cannot be canceled as long as you make your premium payments. Call now to get approved in minutes and ensure your final resting place is more than just a pauper's grave in a potter's field.
800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. That's 800-562-2407. Paid for by Final Expense Direct.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just...
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
And welcome back for more of The Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. And don't forget, auto owners insurance, simple human sense. Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you. Well, in the history of the Big Ten, there have been some amazing coaching performances by a variety of coaches in a multitude of sports. But maybe none better than what we have seen from Mike Rowe of Michigan State. Now, 8 seasons ago, he was entrusted with reconstructing the MSU women's gymnastics program, one that had clearly hit rock bottom. Now, during this window of time, Mike Rowe and his staff have turned the program into Big Ten champions and one of the best programs in the nation. As for Mike himself, he's been named Coach of the Year 1 time, 3 times Big Ten Coach of the Year, and this season has guided Michigan State's women's gymnastics program to the NCAA championships for the first time since 1988. So joining us today is Mike Rowe himself. First off, Mike, thanks for taking a moment to visit. So here comes our first question. What led you to believe that the Michigan State women's gymnastics program could climb from disarray into national prominence?
Well, and I'm not going to be personally responsible for this, but I had a staff, an associate head coach who, between the two of us, our passion and our just enthusiasm and wanting to build something basically from the ground up at that point was, just so, I don't even know a word to describe it. We had this, we both wanted, our own program. Now we had it, maybe not under the best or most ideal circumstances. But, it was a starting point. And, I think, going through what was going on at that time. Um, all we could do was try to, with positivity and fun and engaging with the student athletes and showing just about the compassion and the care and everything that we still have with that we could generate enough kind of, I don't know, fuel for the fire to get them going again. And from recruiting, I would say at that time it was a little tough because that's all any people wanted to talk about, and we didn't. We just wanted to recruit their athletes. So moving forward was kind of difficult, but like I say, we had something, we got a hold of it. We didn't quite know what the future was going to be, but as long as we had it, we were going to, go strong, go forward with it, and be extremely optimistic. And it just kind of, that's always lingering out there. It's almost like a trigger for us now if people bring it up, and it's like, we're past that, we're beyond that, we're hanging with the big dogs, our program is built, and we're on the national stage, and it did take a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to where we are or whatever, but we're past that, and we're proud of that. And like I say, so fortunate and grateful that it's worked out as well as it has.
And you mentioned you're hanging with the big dogs now, and even the big cats too, because Michigan State pushed the defending champs LSU to the brink in the region. Of course, Michigan State ends up finishing second in the region, which then does punch the ticket to the national stage and the national championships, which for Michigan State, it's just the second time ever and the first time since 1988. When you finish that regional and you see the scores and you realize that this program, this team gets to move on to the national championships, what was that feeling like? What were those moments like for you and the team?
It was just explosive enthusiasm, excitement, tears, lots of, I don't know, lots of noise, lots of chatter, lots of everything in a nutshell, very explosive. We knew, and we've known all along, that they could do it. It was just when was it going to come together? And this season, we tried definitely to stay consistent out of the gates with what we were doing, and just trying to train very thoughtfully, because God knows these bodies have been beat up for a lot of years, and it's hard to always know if you're going to be able to field a lineup on certain events. But we were fortunate enough to have depth this year. But just keeping our eyes looking forward and trying to peak at the right time, and it's looking like it's happening. So we're very, very, very excited about that.
Well, Mike, in this building process, at what point did you know you guys were on the right track?
I would say maybe 2022. Was it right after COVID when we lost our season? We had 2 meets or whatever, and I made the decision at one point that I can't have another 10-day off sit down, because a couple of the kids have COVID, and the rest by contact, whatever, we would have to sit down and come back and train again to maybe get to a meet the next weekend. And it's just not, it wasn't only not healthy because of COVID, but this sport is very dangerous, and you need to have repetitions and numbers in order to be conditioned enough to get the season going and then get to a level where you can remain competitive. And it was more about the safety of the student athletes at that time. And, when it comes down to that, I can go out on the floor and I can spot double backs and that kind of stuff in competition. But then you're talking about the integrity of your program. And I know everybody was experiencing the same thing, but it just seemed like we were getting throttled week after week after week, or having 10-day sit downs. So it was like, we got to pull the plug on this. And, but we didn't stop. I mean, we had a season off, but we trained and we did a lot of soul searching on, what the foundation and, what the foundation of our program was going to be, how we were going to try to build a culture, a unique culture that we thought would work for this program. And came up with some really good ideas that I think have been working. And, up to 21, obviously not having a season that year, we were like tied for 56 with a lot of people who also didn't have seasons. But we came back in 22 and ninth in the country. And so it, obviously had some great recruits coming in. We, trained smart, and, the team was sick of being the underdog, sick of being at the bottom of the barrel. It wasn't just us and forcing this or pushing this up. This was them coming to us going, we don't like this anymore. We don't like being last. We don't like being laughed at. We don't like being. And you're like, well, neither do we. So let's do something about it. So, I want to make that clear that the team had a strong desire, and this is the Leah Mitchell era coming in and just saying, Leah Mitchell, Ashley Hovlick, all those kids that, now they're seeing us reap the benefits of what they began. And then recruiting has just gone amazing for us because of, I think, what we've been doing, drawing some attention and getting some better kids in here too. And they're responding very well to what we're doing, and hope we can keep it going.
Well, Mike, someday maybe you, me, and Dalton can do a whole segment on how a 1985 bachelor degree MSU graduate from the landscaping architectural school winds up one of the best gymnastics coaches in all the land.
Thank you. That's very nice, but it's in that landscaping and all that kind of stuff. I was doing gymnastics. I was coaching gymnastics at Lansing Icy Gymnastics Center across town, and I was cheering for the Spartan football and basketball teams with my sister, and it all kind of started there, and it definitely come full circle, and a lot of great things have dropped into my lap. I'm very blessed for that, and just very fortunate to have, been a part of some amazing things, and this being the biggest.
Well, Mike, good luck down in Fort Worth.
Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Mike Rowe, Michigan State's women's gymnastics head coach. Now, we should also mention that Coach Rowe has been named the Women's Collegiate Gymnastics Association Regional Coach of the Year. Now, that's the third time he's received that honor in the past 4 seasons. Also, Associate Head Coach Nicole Jones and Assistant Coach Devin Wright were named the Regional Assistant Coaches of the Year. And as a final note, Gabrielle Stephen, a 4-time All-Big Ten first-team selection, became the first Michigan State gymnast to be named the Regional Player of the Year. So up next for the Spartans, the NCAA Championships on April 17th in Fort Worth, Texas. When we return, our parting shots.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
So I graduated last year and got a job. Sweet! But it got boring. I didn't really have a purpose. Then I started volunteering with Community Action. It's a statewide network with 29 agencies across Michigan. Community Action helps people with food, housing, utilities, childcare, senior services, you name it. I found my purpose, helping people, changing lives. Won't you join me? Call 1-855-MI-ACTION or go to MichiganCommunityAction.org. Sponsored by Michigan Community Action and Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. That's 800-948-6912.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Anybody ready for a burger? I'm State Fire Marshal Rich Miller, reminding everyone to think safety first when it comes to outdoor grilling, whether it's charcoal or gas. Never overload your grill with food. Excess fat and grease will create large flames. Grill outdoors and never inside or in a garage. Never leave a grill unattended and always keep a fire extinguisher nearby. For more tips on safe grilling, visit the Bureau of Fire Services website at michigan.gov/BFS.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here, along with Dalton Shetler. Well, we have now worked our way to our parting shots, but we had a pretty good show today. Something to think about. Thanks to Deb Schneider. And also a great visit with Mike Rowe, the gymnastics head coach of the women's program at Michigan State. Okay, Dalton, parting shots. What do you got?
Well, I was going to say, if people want to think more or think again, make sure you give us a follow at Sports Life Now on Twitter, X, whatever you call it. We post all those interviews and the entire show there. So, again, make sure you give us a follow at Sports Life Now. For my parting shot, I wanted to take a look at something that I'm personally pretty interested and involved with. It's women's college basketball. And there's been a lot of discourse since the national championship game where UConn defeated South Carolina, right? And the TV ratings come out. And all the conversation so far has been about, wow, what a drop-off since Caitlin Clark, which it has been. But I think the conversation's been pretty short-sighted. And I'll give you a couple of reasons why. Because this championship game between UConn and South Carolina this year had 8.5 million people watching the game. 8.5 is nothing to sneeze at. Is it a lot less than Caitlin Clark's championship game run last year of 18.9 million? Yes, it is. But is 18.9 also just a ridiculous number that outdrew any college or NBA basketball game that season? Yes, it outdrew the MLB. It outdrew Monday Night Football sometimes. I mean, it was a silly number that we saw, and it speaks volumes to the Caitlin Clark effect, but I think it also does say something, too, that the two championship games prior to Caitlin Clark, if we go BC, before Clark, those numbers were 4.2 and 4.5 million for those two championship games. So what we've seen is without Caitlin Clark, the last time was 2022. It went from 4.5 million to this year, 8.5 million. That's nearly double what used to be there before Caitlin Clark. So what we're experiencing is Caitlin Clark opened the door, and a lot of people have stayed. About 4 million people have stayed. And I just want to kind of demolish the rhetoric that just because it doesn't beat out some of the men's college basketball games or whatever, that it's nothing. Because that's not nothing. How silly would it be, Will, if we said college football as a total product, who cares? It doesn't beat the NFL. No, there's a lot of people that pay attention to college football, and there's a lot of people that are still paying attention to college women's basketball. It may not be as big as Caitlin Clark. It may never be, but it doesn't have to be something that, frankly, should be negotiated for its own TV contract deal.
I agree. Well spoken, Mr. Shetler. Well spoken. Well, my parting shot is not quite as detailed. You know, we heard an opinion of Jay Billis early on how to fix college basketball. You know, we dug really deep into some things with Deb Schneider. And at the end of the day, here's one thing I think we really need. Somebody in charge. Somebody has got to be in charge of all this. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows who that is. But maybe someday, Dalton. Maybe someday. And with that, that's our show. And as always, we appreciate everybody that tuned in. And we should also note that you can find us wherever you find your podcasts, like SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple. And make sure to check us out and hit subscribe. As always, thanks to the Big Ten Network. The Sports Life is produced by Dalton Shetler. Our executive producer is Wendy Hart. So on behalf of Dalton Shetler, I'm Will Tiemann, and thanks for your time.